research, that's the other thing with Atlantic salmon names. You'll never, well, I shouldn't say never, but they all have wonderfully colorful names like Silver Doctor and Durham Ranger, Jock Scott, Green Highlander. The Doctors were a series that were tied probably by some doctor, and they were little more flamboyant, more blues and reds and yellows and that kind of thing. And there was the Silver Doctor and the Blue Doctor, and a lot of those patterns transfer into the trout world as well. What am I looking for here?
The one that didn't sell well was the gynecologist.
The gynecologist was a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a general practitioner.
Yeah.
There's a salmon fly called a general practitioner. Yeah. And there's one, whoever was asking about would you use these for steelhead, that's one that does transfer to the steelhead world because it's a fairly big fly. So the Silver Doctor requires everything to be silver. So again, I'm going to start this with I'm having a hard time seeing that, with the gold side in, and I'm going to put my little tag like that, just a little longer than normal. Bring my silver over. My favorite Christmas song. I'm going to put this aside because I'm going to use it again for the body. Now, it's a decent one. We still have available to us some of the more exotic birds. This is a golden pheasant, and I'm going to try and find a decent tip here. You'd quite often see this feather, because of the nature of the way it's shaped. You can see it sort of comes out in the sides laterally and then kind of twists up. It's a really elegant little feather, and you'll quite often see these used as what we would call veils, where at the end of the fly, the last stage would be to sort of have it over the fly like this, but it's probably equally often used as a tailing material. So I'm going to cut off the nice little tips down here. Discard most of that. This is where these flies get tricky. If you're really picky, you want this to be sort of up a little bit and stay up, so you don't want it falling off the side. Doesn't always work that way, as we know. But I got lucky there. See how that's sort of upright? And again, it's all aesthetics. I don't think the fish, and probably as I'm locking this in, it's going to fall. It stayed on there reasonably well. And then my peacock curl. And these are just stages that the original patterns called for, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. They were probably mostly used as transition.
Sorry?
That's all right. As transition materials to cover up mistakes. Well, really, I mean, what's the point in tying in this peacock curl other than for aesthetics? And when you take that last fly that I just tied, the moose mane, that's a pretty simple sort of two material pattern, whereas this one requires a lot more But again, it's a little more, this is what I would consider a more traditional salmon fly. So a few years ago, some oil. A few years ago, I had a customer of ours going to the Restigouche, and I tied a bunch of flies for him, and I threw some of these silver doctors in. He didn't ask for them, but I put them in and told him the story that's my dad's favorite fly and yada yada. The Restigouche, like many of the Newfoundland or the New Brunswick rivers, is not producing as well as it did historically.
The waters are so low these days.
Yeah, but Fred made it a point to tell me when he got back that the only fly that they took fish on was the silver doctor, and the guide actually said to him when he was putting it on, when he tied it on, he said, "What the hell is that?" And Fred said, "Well, this friend of mine tied it in Ontario." He said, "That'll never catch fish," something along those lines. "That'll never catch fish." For the next 3 days, that was the only fly that they took fish on. Again, we're going silver, so putting the gold side out. Couple to 3 turns, and then I'll put in a rib on top of that. So if there is a greater value to the material in these flies than aesthetic value, it would be this. In this case, I'm putting on a silver body. I'm putting on a silver body with a silver rib. It may seem redundant, but it's going to give more angles, and in sunlight, you're going to have more reflective angles with that. So maybe the designers of these flies, did have some thought behind it. Again, because I want this fly to be pretty, I'm going to take this right into the turn. So where the eye ends, I'm gonna butt the silver tinsel right up to it, so that I end up with a nice even body, and I'm going to just orient that down along the side. And now I'm not going to have a big bump because I'm using tinsel for the body. It's gonna show any lumps and bumps in the body a lot more than a softer material like a floss or a dubbed body would. So again, I'm getting a little bit Atlantic salmon fly anal retentive, but that's what we do. Make sure I got the silver side going first. I'm going to keep that edge to edge. No red. The fish will look at a silver doctor that he can see red through and say, "Man, an amateur tied that." I need a softer light. That glare on that tinsel is crazy. Again, I'm going to finish it just at the hook turn, or at the eye turn, and lock it in. And again, nice and even. So you can see here now, I got my my tinsel on top. It's just the way it turned out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to feather that down through the middle of the. No, I'm not. I'm going to stop that and go back because I hate that on the top, because my wing really needs to set up on this fly. So I'm going to finish it down on the bottom. There, that's better. See, there's a little bit of red there, but I'm not going to fuss too much over that. Now, if you look at some of these patterns, this is what I would call, you know, a classic fly. You can see that, and this is a silver doctor. You can see he's got red and yellow ahead of the body there. I could have done that. Truth be known, I forgot. Which I always do that when I'm tying flies for demonstrating. There's always something I screw up, but we're going to use some squirrel tail dyed. This is silver or blue Dr. Blue, and because I'm using three pieces of three different colors, I'm going to make these fairly sparse. And whether you're tying trout flies or Atlantic salmon flies or steelhead flies, 90% of the time you're better off to err to the side of sparse than too heavy, okay? Too heavy will build up the eyes and make them look ugly. Like there's, I don't know how many, 15 or 20 strands there. I'm going to set that down, grab some yellow, and I want the more predominant color in this to be the blue, so I'm going to go a little bit less with the yellow. So I'd say I'm probably 30% less. I'm going to lay that in the tips. So this would be the equivalent of the poor man's
Married feather.
married wing, and the red about the same. And contrary to popular belief, you can stack squirrel tail. It's very crinkly, but I could put that in a stacker and stack it, but I'm not going to bother because it's a fairly even wing. If I can get the colors nice and even on it, then that would be cool. I brought over a guinea feather right there. So we're gonna.
Can you use anything else other than squirrel for that?
You could. Sorry, that's not squirrel. That's calf. I said squirrel. That's calf tail.
Oh, okay.
My mistake. Yeah, you could. This original pattern that my dad's buddy tied him. He tied it with calves, so we just automatically went that route. But so same thing with this guinea fowl. I'm gonna make a throat here. I'm gonna pull it off. I'm gonna take it to a right angle from the quill, like that, and then I can pull it all off in one chunk, and I get nice even tips. And this is my throat. Make that about halfway. Come up with a soft loop, catch everything underneath it. Make sure it's standing up there reasonably well like that, and bingo. Just trying to blend those together a little bit, and all I'm doing is just so with your married wing flies, the feather wing flies, there's generally two distinctions. There's married wings where you're actually using the barbulettes of the barb or the barbule, and it's velcroing together. And then there's what we refer to as mixed wings, where you're just taking the same material and basically toothbrushing them, so the same feathers, and toothbrushing them together and blending them and mixing them together. That would be kind of what I'm trying to achieve here with this wing, is just getting a nice mixture, but with the blue closer to the top. And again, it's that anal retentive Atlantic salmon. Calf tail is not hollow, so it won't flare. That actually turned out nice. My dad would be proud of me. I'll catch a fish. I'm gonna make sure again I don't crowd the eye. Lock it in and cut that off. And we always, it doesn't matter what fly we're tying, whether they're trout flies or that one hair had me bugged. You want to try and keep the heads as small and sort of uniform as possible. And that's it.
Silver Doctor.
It is a modified version of a Silver Doctor. As I said, as I mentioned, I forgot the yellow and